This lesson will demonstrate how to use Project to create a project schedule. For this week, you are required to define the tasks and activities required to complete the project and define the resources required to complete the task. Additionally, you are required to sequence your activities and put in the activity durations. You are not required to assign any other dates. The information you need to complete this assignment is contained in your WBS and RASI. Typically, I will develop my WBS in Project before I develop my RASI, but I have found that it is easier for new users of Project to develop their WBS in Excel before creating the WBS in Project. Go to Project, and on the menu bar, go up to Project Information, and check your start date. It should be 1/31/11. Also note while you are here, the calendar is set to standard. Next, select Task on the menu bar. Typically, the default view is Gantt view. You can work in this view, but I find working in Task Sheet is more efficient. Clicking View will result in a drop-down menu. As you scroll down, you will see Task Sheet. However, if you do not see Task Sheet as an option, scroll down to More Views. Clicking More Views will result in a pop-up dialog box with a list of choices. Scroll down and select Task Sheet. Once again, just to demonstrate, I will switch back to Gantt view, then select Task View, and switch over to Task Sheet. Now I can begin to enter tasks for my WBS. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use the WBS I developed for the OCC project. However, you will be doing a schedule for the office relocation project. The OCC project is just for demonstration purposes. For the sake of time, I'm not going to enter all the tasks. I will begin with AV equipment and continuing entering tasks for my WBS. Notice that my tasks at this point are in line vertically. This is the level 1 position. I can select a number of tasks by pressing the Shift and selecting tasks with my mouse. Then I can use my indent tool to move these tasks to the level 2 position. I could also individually select tasks and move them to level 3 position. There are many ways to develop a WBS. In my example here, I have 3 separate tasks of order AV, because I'm ordering each piece of equipment from a different supplier. If they were all coming from one supplier, then I would just have order AV. Because they are separate vendors, I want to track them individually. I also have delivery as 3 separate categories, again, because each piece of equipment has a different delivery time. I'm also going to add some of the tasks for the computers. There are more computer tasks, but these will suffice for this demonstration. Once all my tasks are entered for my WBS, I will begin to define my activities. Defining activities are the steps required to complete your WBS. In MS Project terms, they are simply more tasks. The PMBOK calls them activities. Project calls them tasks. If I right-click a task, the result is a pop-up list. If I select Insert Task, the task will be inserted above the selected task. I then select my new task to edit the name. I use the F2 button to quickly enter edit mode. In our example, I add activities or tasks in several places. To keep my WBS organized, I'm adding the activities in sequence that they are performed. However, this is not necessary, and at times it's not practical. You'll see this later on. Once again, as I add tasks, I indent them as appropriate. I can also double-click a task to edit its name. Double-clicking results in the Task Information dialog box opening. The Task dialog box is a very useful and is a convenient place to edit tasks and has many advanced features you'll be accessing in the future. After I complete entering my task and defining the activities, I start sequencing my activities. Sequencing is the process of identifying and documenting relationships among the activities or tasks. At this point, we are not concerned with dates, deadlines, or durations. We are only concerned with dependencies. What tasks depend on other tasks before they can be completed? To establish dependencies in Project, we enter task numbers found at the far left side of the task sheet into the predecessor column. However, subtasks already have a dependency relationship established. For instance, task 3, order whiteboard, must be completed before task 4, deliver whiteboard. If I enter a 3 in the predecessor column of task 4, I get an error message, again because the dependency is already established. But if I enter an 8 in task 11, project accepts the entry. I have now established a dependency. I must deliver cables before I can rough in cables. I continue to enter tasks. Note the logical dependencies between the tasks. Task 17, install cable, presents another situation. This task has two dependencies. Number 8, deliver cables, and number 16, mount whiteboard. A task could conceivably have several dependencies. Take note that installing brackets is also a dependency. However, we do not have to add task 15 because the dependency is already established through task 16. Multi-dependencies occur with some additional tasks, as you can see. As I'm going through adding my dependencies, I may realize that I need to define some additional activities. And that's what I'm doing here. When I switch over to Gantt view, I notice that my tasks and their dependencies are now graphically represented. I switch back and begin to add my resources from my RANSI chart. Switching back into Task Sheet, I now add my resources from my RASI chart. Again, I like the Task Sheet because it allows me to simply type in the resources. Once the resources are entered, I can also use the drop-down box to select one or more resources. I double check and decide to add UPS as a resource. I now switch to Gantt view, and my resource names are shown on the chart. Every activity must have a resource assigned. If I switch the resource sheet, I can view all my resources. Do not edit your resources this week. This week in the case study, you have several pieces of communication to analyze. Each communication contains information on resources, activities, dependencies, and durations. Use this information to construct your schedule. Once you get to this point, you can now begin to add durations to your activities. As we saw before, the default is 1 day. Go through and from the case study, add the durations that you found in the various pieces of communication. If you don't have a specified time, do not make one up. Use the discussion board to ask a vendor or staff for input. This is as far as we're going to take the schedule this week. Next week, we'll work on auto scheduling and manual scheduling, resource leveling, and a few other nuances of Microsoft Project. But for this week, this is as far as you need to go to complete your assignment.